And welcome back to another LinuxGameCast Weekly, the show that covers the latest Linux gaming news, reviews, how-tos, and most importantly, whatever the hell else we come up with. This week, Feral has gone to war. Yes, it's hammer time, and YouTube has done something completely pants-on-head retarded again.
Once upon a time, Valve could count to 3, and then they gave up. Double the pixels, some of the dragons, and none of the dungeons. It's the Super Dragon Brothers Super Show!
Slain back from hell is now on Linux, and we bang its head in with some chairs. Humble does another bundle. We'll give you the cherry picks on this one.
I've been Stone, here at LGC Actual, quite early in its strange middle of the day, 5 p.m. my time, joined every week. I'm Biotame Canadian podcaster.
It's so bright out!
And all the way from Space Portugal, where it's not 2:30 in the morning.
Yeah, no.
That's Pedro, not AS. And together with Shot Realm Dynamic helping us form that special little bit known as Cocaine Voltron. Before we get started, we like to see what's going on in each other's life organs. J-Baby, what's up?
Well, not my back, because I woke up this morning, and then I tried to get out of bed and realized I could not. Looks like my chronic back pain is now chronic. It's back. Aha, get it? So I've been dealing with that all day.
Back like scoliosis. What's up, man?
Well, Christmas came a bit early. If by
snap.
Christmas you mean just about 400 euros that went down the drain because I got me a new cheapo laptop. It's the Lenovo IdeaPad B5080. It was pretty cheap. I got a Samsung 750 Evo, 250 gig for like 70 euros to go along with it. Pretty good. And that goes on the couch. Got me first mechanical keyboard in 20 years. It's actually pretty heavy. If you drop this one, it's going to hurt somebody.
And over here, not a whole lot to report. Charter, which is providing our business interwebs, gave me some more upload speed, so good on them, unless their data caps have just been borked for the past week, and bad on them. Either way, don't fix it. But does our horse have anything to fix this week?
I don't know, but it's kind of weird because I'm seeing 3 of them. Maybe something wrong. It's the Steam update. This is a bit weird. This is a weird bit of news. This is from Eurogamer.net. Links to all this crap in our show notes. So once upon a time, back in the gold source days, Valve was working on a mod called Threewave, and it was essentially a type of capture the flag style game. And apparently news came about when Half-Life 2 was in development, and someone found it on some random FTP server in, where was this? In the Philippines or something like that? Vietnam. Same general area. But I downloaded it, I dropped it into the Half-Life folder, it runs, it looks like Deathmatch Classic, except no one's playing it. And also it doesn't actually kill the process when you exit it. I came back and I checked Steam. Hey, Half-Life is still running. Oh, it isn't? Oh, shit, it is. What the fuck?
Yeah, I definitely looked at it, and I was like, well, that's a thing that looks like Deathmatch. Pedro, did you get to play with it? Does it bring anything new? Is it crazy?
No, but seeing as the original Half-Life was not really much more than a mod for the original Quake engine, I didn't really see the appeal. But hey, it's a game or a mod that Valve made 20 years ago.
And you can play it 20 years later. Aren't you excited? But you know that the red ones go faster, right?
Hey man, #Chainsaw Sword. You know, for people who can't figure out how to play D&D, we got Dawn of War, Warhammer. Oh, that's right, Feral. They're awesome. They're bringing it to Linux. Not just one, but some expansion packs. Warhammer 40,000, Dawn of War 2. Looking forward to that, baby. Give it to me, put it in the veins. Hey, I saw this and I was like, hey, I'm very happy because this is probably going to hold me over until Deus Hex, Human Revolution.
Hex?
Yeah.
Hex.
So what do you think?
I mean, I'm excited for it. I don't usually like real-time strategy, but I do like Warhammer. Yeah. So the one thing that pisses me off about this game, no Tau. Where's the greater good? Where is it, I ask you?
I don't know, man. But I've always wanted to get into this, but I didn't want to spend, 20,000 fucking pounds. to like buy all the
Yeah.
figurines and paint them. Like I have friends that have absolutely totally not. Yes, they have. They've done that.
You have friends. That's a laugh.
Yeah, it's kind of unavoidable to have friends. I've been doing my damnedest to drive them all away, but I couldn't. And I still don't like real-time strategy games, regardless of settings. So, yeah, kudos, Feral, but yeah, no.
I don't know, gentlemen. Are we worried about any type of performance issues with this, or do you think real-time strategy is probably going to be chill enough to where we?
I don't know, because
Company of
Feral has
Heroes 2 would
proven
like a
that
word with you.
Company of Heroes 2, exactly. That is the prime example of how Feral can fail to do real-time strategy, but maybe they learned their lesson. Who
I
knows?
think it'll be a good thing, but I do remember I forgot to link to it. I believe it was Feral Ellie or in Linux_gaming said that this will not support cross-platform multiplayer. So,
well, this is an older game too.
We're still talking about Feral. Cool.
Dawn of War 2 came out like what in 2009, I think 2008, something like that.
Yeah.
But anyways, it's good that it's on Linux because more Warhammer is a good thing.
right.
So
I mean,
we go
it's a
from
beautiful
real
time to sit back and be alive because you're like, oh, we're not. Those are, well, of course, Warhammer's coming to Linux. Not well. What's the performance going to be like? I mean, come on, it's coming to Linux. Just be happy with what we get at this point.
Oh yeah.
But things on Linux.
Yes, things that are finally on Linux, because this came out, as you can see at the top of the post there, August 1st. Yes. This is the Back from Hell supposed improved edition for Slain, which was a game that was on Kickstarter a couple of years ago. And now the Back from Hell version is officially out on the Linuxes. We will be throwing chairs at the game a bit later on, but the story with this game, when they first announced that the Back from Hell improved version was coming out, I sent them an email. And it's like, they came back to me and said, oh yeah, the Linux and Mac versions of Back from Hell are still in the works. Mm-hmm. So, okay, we'll wait until the new version is out, and then you send us some keys. Does that sound fair? And they said, yeah, sure. So this is now almost the end of September, and obviously I had completely forgotten about it, but they didn't and actually sent us the keys. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I loaded it up, and Jordan was like, oh my god, the soundtrack's amazing. I love it. I can't get enough.
That is totally not what I said.
That's exactly what it says in the notes, man.
No, it's Celtic Frost noodling. I mean, the only thing that really appealed to me about this game was like, oh yeah, there's a soundtrack by a former Celtic Frost guy. So my thought process was, you know what, that might be interesting. I want to give that a listen. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the CHAIRQUISITON. Mm-hmm. We'll see how all that holds up. No spoilers. Tons of spoilers.
Well, this was a thing. It's a cockroach simulator, believe it or not. What? Shovelware can get on Steam, you say? No. Yes, it's about the hard life in the kitchen. This is the unusual place. Many interest, intertwine, but yeah, basically you run around. Either, I'm guessing you can play as the roach or the guy.
So it's like a bug version of Who's Your Daddy?
Yeah, it says it's multiplayer. It's currently $5.99, and it looks janky enough to where this would be an absolute blast or absolute complete shite. I don't know. Is anyone interested in this?
Not really. If they send us some keys, I might check it out. But I mean, yeah, there's that Mr. Mosquito game that I think did this sort of genre a lot better and had some weird pervy moments.
Not even. If you really want to play as a cockroach, look up Bad Mojo from 1996 or 1997, and just play that instead because it's a better game.
I don't know. The one thing I definitely saw with it is like, well, it's multiplayer. I was like, well, if it was online multiplayer to where you could have, 1,000 roaches and one guy and you could go to Joe's apartment on the motherfucker.
Oh, yeah. Some Tucker Skullbolts type shit. Yeah. Or... oh. Actually, that would be kind of cool for like a Gremlins game where you have like the army of Gremlins versus like the one guy in the FPS mode. That would be kind of neat. Yeah. But speaking of, the previous story was Hipster Pixel. This one is also Hipster Pixel. This is, and let's throw some early access on there. This is Dragon Brothers, a game that, while you might think Double Dragon comes to mind, it's more like Contra. You can pick it up for about $10, and yeah, they have. It's one of these other games where people really need to have online multiplayer, because couch multiplayer is great, except when you're playing on PC, it's very, very rare that you're actually going to have another person in the room willing to like pick up a controller plugged into your computer. So I don't know. It's basically a Contra rehash. So
Yeah,
that is definitely
you
a
can't
thing.
judge it, man, because it's an early access, bro.
Absolutely, right.
Totally.
It totally is excused for being unoriginal and hipster pixely, but you know, it could actually be fun for all I know. I could just be talking out of my ass. But
We don't really know because it only has 3 reviews and all of them are positive.
Wait, hang
So
on.
take that with a grain of salt.
We got to check out this new review system. I forgot about that.
No, it's 3 reviews.
Oh, legit
period.
purchases. All right.
Yeah.
All right. So, you know, who knows, man? I mean, it definitely could be a thing, but, you know, while that is not necessarily original, what's coming up next is kind of, maybe?
Oh,
Question
kinda.
mark?
There was when I first saw this game show up on the pre-release stuff that was on Steam.
Mhm.
I'm like, oh, this looks really good. Like the trailer, the screenshots, pretty good aesthetics. Good job on that. And then
Yeah,
I started reading
and
Pavilion,
look.
the 4th-person puzzling adventure from Vision Trick Media. Throws you directly into its mysterious world without any text tutorials or beginning explanations. Yeah, they literally do that. They just drop you in and say, figure your shit out.
Mhm.
And I guess I know what 4th person means now. Also, I should mention that the fine dudes at Vision Trick Media did send us keys for the game, so we'll probably be throwing chairs at it at some point. But the game is, M. Foxdog mentioned in the notes comments that it's lemmings minus the suicidal rodents. It's more along the lines of Back to Bed, where you don't have the bunny-eared person-faced dog cat thing.
Oh, Donnie Darko.
Yeah, you don't have the Donnie Darko
Oh, it's
bunny
not-
rabbit going around, yeah. But yeah, the 4th person just means that you don't have a character exactly in the game, and the character you see is not being controlled by you.
Huh. Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I started it and was like, oh, look, there's a ball floating around. Can I move? All right. Oh, the guy's kind of running from it. Oh, fuck all, this better be moddable. Turn the ball into a cattle prod.
Yeah, so what, you're saying that we finally get a decent video game adaptation of The Prisoner?
Yes. No.
All right.
Oh, there was already one of those, but it never came out for Linux. They said they might do it. I can't remember what its name was after release, and they didn't.
Nicolas Cage is.
Okay, I think that wraps up.
Let's not
yes.
even get started on that AMC remake of The Prisoner. That's enough for this section. Coming up next, Humble shovels more stuff down your throat. And YouTube, well, YouTube's gonna YouTube.
For the news, well then, sit on tight because sit on tight. What the Jordan? I'm just gonna go away now.
That's good. My wishes have been granted, and your wishes can be granted too by getting on over to patreon.com/LinuxGameCast and giving us money, because this shit is expensive, man. Or you can go to linuxgamecast.com/support the shows, but you know, Patreon's the preferred method because you get all sorts of goodies for $2.50 a show or more. You get access to the show notes, and for just 5 cents, a nickel. You can't buy anything for a nickel these days, but it'll get you early
you could
access
probably
to all.
find like a nickel laying around and just like throw it at our heads. Are you implying that's a good idea?
There is actually a nickel on my table right now. I could I could totally throw it at the webcam. It would probably fix the webcam problems we've been having. But regardless, 5 cents a show will get you access to early versions of the Let's Play series that we do, the Left for Brads, the Tryin' Agains. Oh, we're almost at the end of Tryin'. So we might be doing a vote or something to determine what game we should suffer through next. Ugh. I shudder to think. And you know what? Speaking of suffering, if we can make it to $200 an episode, you get to force me to play Serious Sam, and I fucking hate that game. So there's your incentive.
So how much have you kicked? All right. Let's get ready to humble, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, it's a kind of a weak bundle, but then again, it's not an indie bundle. It's just a Jumble Bundle 7, and they'll give you Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, which you can actually play under Linux natively with the open RTC or RCT. Sorry. engine.
WebRTC, yes.
Yeah. No, it's OpenRCT. Right.
No, you play it in Jitsi, right?
And you get Devil Daggers. That one's native. If you pay more than the average, you also get Prison Architect and Punch Club on Steam. Prison Architect also has a DRM-free version. And if for some reason you're a filthy dual-booting heathen, you can pay $9.99 or more to unlock Miscreated, which screams so hard, I want to be DayZ. It's not even pretty. But yeah, as is tradition with those bundles that don't include like Linux version of all the games, if you look at the Pac-Man graph there, Linux, pretty small tab there, still paying more. Most. Yeah, yep. Still paying more on average than Mac. But if you compare that to, say, the current ongoing mobile bundle, every single one of those games, which is the Artifacts Mundi PC and mobile bundle, all of those games support Linux. It's those hidden object games. If you look at the Pac-Man graph on that, Linux is about a third bigger than the Mac slice.
But remember, kids, you gotta support the Mac OS because that's where all the gamers are, right? Right?
Yeah, totally.
Right?
I don't know. I saw this and I was like, and I was like, oh, Prison Architect. Might as well pick that up because fucking all if I'm ever going to throw 30 quid to ever play that game. And I was like, all right. I gave him a few bucks. And then I tried, what was it? Someone was making fun of me with the Devil Daggers. It was like, ha, Vin. And it was like, look at this. And I was like, yeah, I played it just long enough to realize it's insta-death and it's one of those games. And I never launched it again.
It seemed kind of interesting, but I don't know. For me, at least, there's nothing else in the bundle that tickles my fancy.
I don't know. I think it might be fun for the kids. And when I launched it up, I was like, yeah, I remember the days before I got my first 3DFX card, and it was passed through. Pedro?
Yeah, I know. The draw distance in Devil Daggers is surely reminiscent of, like, Quake on the Sega Saturn. Mm-hmm. But, yeah, no, it works. And that was the sole reason I actually bought the bundle. I still paid more than the average in the off chance the extra added games that they usually add like 1 week in.
Oh, look, it's another copy of Trying Free.
Yeah.
No, I mean, yeah, maybe Roller Coaster Tycoon maybe might play around with that. One thing is to be remembered, though, now that they've changed the way that these Steam review systems work, that none of your reviews matter anymore, ladies and gentlemen.
It doesn't matter. Got cheap games.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You got cheap games. Steam didn't get its cut, so yeah.
But, speaking of prisons and, Stanford prison experiment, then YouTube has a brand new policy out.
Hey, man, I heard people put video games up on the YouTube. But YouTube needs a hero. Yes, the hero it deserves. The people who comment. Oh, yeah. Do you see any way this could possibly go wrong? I mean, seriously, I heard about this story. And I was like, between this and the North American debates, I'm going to run out of fucking popcorn, man. This is, I don't know what necessarily happened here unless they, got extremely jelly of Steam's slave labor that they use for their moderators and stuff like that and don't pay them any. They're like, we need some of our own student athletes. Yes. And we're going to do that. But what they've done is taking a system that they've had, a lot of people didn't know about, called the Trusted Flaggers. Not making that up. That could easily go wrong after a few drinks. Program.
Needs more sports water.
And they renamed it, and they've gamified the system. So, you can start and you can flag the videos and all that. It's like, and you get points and you go to different levels the higher, then you can do mass flaggings and stuff like this. However, comments on their video saying, hello, do this for us, work for free. It'll be great. We're going to give you more tools so you can work for free for us. They kind of disabled comments on that, kind of from the people who they wanted to get to do this in the first.
Yeah. MT and I were talking about this at length the other day. And it really just boils down to the fact that the YouTube comment section and most of the YouTube user base is a cesspool. It is like some of the worst people. There's a reason why you don't read the YouTube comments, or if you're Pedro, you read the YouTube comments because you're just wrong.
Because I enjoy arguing on the internet. Yes.
Yeah, but like as soon as this goes into effect, every single special interest group on the internet, be it the social justice warriors or the men's rights people or the Republicans or the Shriners or the evil gnomes who live in my basement and constantly steal my underwear will find a way to game this so that they can get their entire crew at a high enough level that they can just start taking videos down, and it's just going to be a complete nightmare for them.
We do need to point this out. You're not going to be able to take the videos down. The way this will work is it'll then be submitted to YouTube under consideration, which means it's going to be submitted to the same automated system that has flagged my own voice as copyrighted.
Oh yes, YouTube's automatic detection of DMCA stuff is just spot on. I mean, this is going to have definite ramifications. We're not going to see what this is, but it honestly smacks to me like some really elaborate rehash of the Stanford prison experiment, where you like allow certain people power over other people and they go completely mad and it becomes an entire shit show. I think this is going to become YouTube in a little while, and like I get, but. It has a purpose, right? Because, subtitling, unless you want the awesome subtitles of our videos, maybe you actually want to know what the people on the screen are saying if you're, say, hearing impaired or whatever. So, like, there's value in that. Someone actually suggested, I think it was Ross from Game Grumps, who was like, yeah, give people, like, free time on YouTube Red. That would be a great incentive for doing this kind of stuff. Don't give them power.
Yeah.
Don't.
No, it's advertising unpaid jobs, because that's what this is, to the kind of people who use YouTube as a social network. What could possibly go wrong? I mean, the irony of it all is, like Ven already mentioned, they had to disable the comments on the video from how bad the comments were on the announcement.
And, man, why focus on the negative stuff? Why not have, like, YouTube, or Heroes is just a stupid name. Let's just get that. You should never have called it Heroes. Anything but Heroes.
YouTube villains.
YouTube Marklar. And, but how about rewarding people for doing good shit, YouTube? Like, hey, this was a very instructional video. I would like to flag it as good or neat and get some type of reward. Maybe some YouTube Red, a little cut of that. But I'm bewildered. I'm boggled. But morbid curiosity alone is just like, put the fucking lawn chair out. Get the popcorn going. Let's just see how this fucking unfolds. Yeah. I don't know if it'll directly affect us in any way. We're not really throwing huge anything at YouTube. We just kind of keep it there for the people that watch the videos on occasion. 99% of our stuff's audio download. And so, we'll see. There's not a whole lot of place to go because YouTube's the power company. I even looked at like, maybe we can move over to VidMe. And I was like, no, that's not going to ever happen. So,
all Twitch all the time. Ugh, no. But, you might remember this. Speaking of horror and nightmare fuel, and maybe lack thereof, there was this little game released last year called SOMA by a little company you may have heard of called Frictional. Mm-hmm. And they have a 1 year later report where they sort of discuss how they sold about 500,000 units. A secondary tweet from one of the Frictional guys confirmed that about 1.1% of all the purchases, so that totals out to about 5,000 purchases, were Linux. Yeah. So, I mean, that's about in line with what we're seeing with the Steam surveys. I'm honestly I want to see the Mac numbers, though, because I'm pretty sure those are going to be equally low.
Well, one of the big things they brought up in this blog is like, after the Humble Bundle and all that, we finally broke even on the game.
Well, yeah, it's really hard to turn a profit on games, especially something as ambitious as, say, SOMA. And especially because, like, SOMA was an okay game. It was all right. Its strong points were its story and the sci-fi concepts and questions that it asks, but the gameplay did not really fit with it all that well. So
no, it was a really great story. It's actually an awesome game. There's a mod that disables the annoying roboto fuck you because that's wise. And as soon as you take them things out of the way, because they're not scary, all they do is cause you like, all right, so I got to go this way instead of that way. And once you disable those, I mean, just hanging out, checking out the story, discovering like what does constitute humanity. Oh my God, I'm 14, my mind's blown, Pedro.
If paradoxically, instead of being too scared to get out of their comfort zone, and they decided not to rely so much on the horror genre, SOMA would have been a really proper sci-fi thriller. I enjoyed the game very much, but the monsters were just annoying. They were some of those encounters were painfully, obviously shoehorned in. And this is not the first time that, Frictional has had this issue. In fact, when the Penumbra series, the first one, Overture, was out, they couldn't break even with that game they needed the help from like the very first Humble Indie bundle. That was the one thing that sort of brought them out, and they managed to finish the rest of the series, release the other 2 games, and then make Amnesia, The Dark Descent. So yeah, this is history repeating itself. I think Frictional needs another Amnesia.
Yeah, well, and the other thing is these are kind of niche games as it is. Not everyone likes the horror genre, especially the survival
that's
horror.
Definitely one thing. When you pick up a game from Frictional, you know what you're going to get. They do their one thing and they pretty much stick with it. I know that was one of the complaints about SOMA, and that is like it would have been a better game. I think the game is very good. I mean, it's reasonably priced for what you get. Okay, let's just be honest about that. And the port's very solid on Linux. But if it didn't incorporate all the Amnesia throw around, pick up, and throw stuff mechanics that really weren't needed for it.
The frictionalisms.
Yeah.
That's really what it is. Like, it's a frictional game. It has to hit all these various tropes that are very unnecessary for the story, Soma was saying. But, you know, good on them. They finally broke even.
Or first person. Yeah. Those are like the things that they do.
Now, the other thing is they could branch out, but then, you know, Frozen Byte tried to branch out with Trine, and look how that turned out. So, up next, we have CD keys. Remember those?
Nope.
Yeah. So, again, just out of the box, kudos to the Evian team, as they're called now. They've changed the name like 3 times during my research for this thing. They sent us a key, or 2 keys in this case, for an unlimited activation of their new game, Evian 4. And I did a quick Google search. It's like, oh, it's on Steam. Why aren't you giving us Steam keys for this? And then Ven was in the notes, oh, it's Windows only on Steam. Right. So instead, they sent us a DRM-riddled quote-unquote installer, which they don't really realize that it's kind of useless, because the moment you activate it, you could just find the .Avian folder on your home folder and just copy it over wherever you take it, and it's always going to be that one activation. So that doesn't really work, yo.
Yeah. Oh no, man! What are you talking about? DRM is like, I mean, that's wait, no, they've already cracked that for that new Doom game, didn't they?
Yeah, the new vote. Nope.
Yeah, probably not a good idea, but it's made even better because you don't get a GUI to type these keys in. Both of them. No, you do that. You know, right in a virtual terminal. I mean, it's going to completely throw Arch users for a loop.
It's not even that. Like, you can't even call CD keys DRM anymore because it's just so trivial. It doesn't do any phone home stuff. It just says, oh, you need this thing that validates to play the game. Blah. But I mean, they're going for some sort of humorous villains dealing with hero shtick. I played it for about 15 minutes. And just so much dialogue that I really didn't care about, and it just wasn't really funny. And I mean, having to enter 2 CD keys via terminal is not fun either.
Yeah, and I wouldn't even
more about it, because I mean, I actually sat through that intro, which was about 15 minutes long, and I was like, oh man, this is what happens when white people make JRPGs, isn't it?
And not just white people. If you take into consideration, that's describing basically every single Final Fantasy since Final Fantasy VI onwards. Yeah, but I wouldn't even be too negative on this game if it weren't for the price tag, because they're asking for $20 on the RPG Maker Western JRPG type thing du jour. Because if you look at the screenshots, it's RPG Maker. It's very obviously an RPG Maker game.
Yeah.
Well, it's not ugly, and it does run.
That it does.
It's got that going
does,
for
yeah.
it. It very has that. It has that distinct feel of a SNES style game created by someone who was too young to have a Super NES, you know?
and I mean, to be fair, they shipped it in a tar.gz file with the correct permissions set.
This is good. Good. See, we will find positives, man. I mean, that's us. We are positive here.
That's an improvement over the typical Unity release. So, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. So, coming up next, we're going to die because we got slain.
I hate you so much.
I'm seriously regretting not going to the costume store and getting some corpse paint for this game, or at least for the review from this game. This is Slain, Back from Hell from Wolfroot Games, written on the Unity engine, and you'll find out why in a bit. Price for about 12 to 13 of your particular wet stinky currency. And what is it? A heavy metal inspired arcade combat with puzzle elements and gore galore, stunning visuals and true old school gameplay, accompanied by the most metal soundtrack you've ever heard noodled in 30 minutes. So with every chairquisition we get, of course, the chairquisition. 1 chair means that it's garbage, 2 chairs means that it's meh, 3 chairs means that it's pretty good, 4 chairs means it's amazing. And we got our categories, mixed with working shiny sounds, controls, and fun. Yes, those are the categories. That
they are now.
They are now. We're doing it live.
That's right.
So let's kick this off. Did Slane make with the working then?
Over here on the Ubuntu 1404, still running that old nonsense with 8150, 980 powered 4K display box of the business. Not too bad. I mean, performance-wise, it's hipster pixel bullshit, so I didn't really try it at UHD. 3040 by 2160 did play it at 1080p. It maintained a constant 60 FERP, so nothing really to complain about. But as Jordan alluded to, Unity game not done correctly. So you get the Unity scream of nope, boop, pops up right there. It's like, oh, would you like to select a display resolution and or quality options? And it's like, oh, great, a controller game that you might want to play in your Steam box. Every now and then, Girl and the Robot did this. It had the Unity scream of nope. But if you entered into big picture mode, it was smart enough to go, hey, I'm in big picture mode. I'm not going to throw that bullshit in your way. And you could play it. This, not so much. So if you have your Steam box, and you're like, boop, bloom, you're like, ah, crap. You either got to find a gerbil and a keyboard to do your thing however you want to, or maybe you have your Steam controller working properly in that manner. But that one thing does ding it a chair. So for mixed with working, it gets 3.
Yeah, on Fedora 24 64-bit on the i7 6700K with the GTX 980. I did, in fact, run this game at UHD, and it looks exactly the same as it does at 1080p because it's pixels. Oh my god, shock among shocks. But yeah, you get that big old Unity scream of nope, and that dings you a chair, so 3.
Oh yes, yes indeed. I tried it on the Steam box with the AMD Athlon X4 860K overclocked at 4.2 GHz and the GTX 970 Strix. And the very first thing that popped up, Unity screen of nope. -1 chair right off the box. And if you take into account that the game itself has an options menu which lets you reassign controls. So the only thing it's doing there is the resolution and graphical settings. Of course, the graphical settings don't change anything because the game is in 2D and it's hipster pixel. So if the devs had taken just the time to, add a resolution options menu to the game itself, this would have been useless. But they didn't, so it gets 3 chairs.
All right, so that's 3 chairs for mix with the working. Up next is Shiny and Sounds. Sven, did you feel the metal? Did you see the metal? Did
Brother
you hear
Svang, for whatever have we done to be forsaken by the Lord Flying Spaghetti Monster? 2 weeks of hipster pixel bullshit.
Except you loved that last one.
Nay. Hey, man, everyone loved that last one except for people who hate Metroid. And that they rhyme with Pedro because Pedro hates Metroid, and that's the end of that story. This, however, my friends, is no Metroid. Not even close. The ASMR we played last week, infinitely better game in all the ways, including, the right look and feel, because that's something we talked about and touched on last week, is when somebody makes a hipster pixel type game that captures what it really looked like without having things say, you're fucked in this game as soon as you launch it. It's like, oh, what CRT option would you want? I was like, shit, this is made by a 22-year-old. I could be wrong, correct me if I'm right. It's not fugly, though. I mean, it's very gothic, it's very dark. I can kind of dig it, but it's also kind of annoying, as some people even noticed earlier this week when I was live streaming just a bit of my infinite frustration with this gelatinous piece of nope. It's kind of hard to tell what you can and cannot jump in or onto or what's hitting you because the color palette for this entire game is dark. And like brown dark. It's like the robe color dark. It's like, I don't know really what's coming at me. The sounds, they're not horrible considering what we've been through recently. Now, not a huge fan of the guy who played a couple of chords for like 5 seconds, but it's so infinitely better than a lot of the stuff that have been infiltrating my ear pussies as of late. So yes, some mild head bobbing ensued. it works. I mean, it looks better than complete shit. Yes, it's hipster pixels, but yeah. And it's got a soundtrack that's not horrible. It didn't make me instantly take off the headphones. So yeah, 3 cheers. I mean, yeah, all right. I feel comfortable doing that.
Oh yeah, in the Steam news segment, I brought up that this is the former Celtic Frost guy noodling, and that was the only thing that really piqued my interest about this game. And yes, noodle he does. It literally sounds like they sent an email to the guy. He's like, yeah, you want to do a soundtrack for our game? Yeah, you want to pay me my rate? I can afford an hour. Okay, so I'm gonna noodle some shit out, and there's your soundtrack.
Put my name on the title screen.
Yes. And I mean, beyond that, you have this sort of hipster pixel pseudo black metal visual aesthetic that you know what? I honestly think that in terms of like a black metal aesthetic, M2R actually has a better one because it's very Geigerian and very organic. And this just feels like Simon's Quest, like a darker, grayer Simon's Quest. With extra gore and complete with flying Medusa heads. But, you know, the soundtrack did get stuck in my head as music tends to do, and I found myself humming it the other day, and then I started slapping myself. So, on that merit alone, I suppose it gets 3 cheers.
Well, I'm not going to question its metal pedigree as it is, but they claim that this is the most metal soundtrack I've ever heard. And that's a lie.
They haven't played Spain.
What is, out of curiosity?
Yeah.
It's Brutal Legend. Yeah.
That's kind of cheating. Go on.
But like I mentioned during the SOMA review, this is elevator music of the metal kind, or EMMK, as I'm going to start referring to it. But yeah, like I mentioned, Brutal Legend had freaking Ozzy Osbourne playing the devil. Yeah, that's the most metal soundtrack I've ever heard in a game. So no, you don't really get to claim that. I wouldn't go so far as to describe the visuals as stunning either. The game looks like Castlevania on the Mega Drive, Genesis, wherever you happen to be in the world. But stunning the visuals are not. And speaking of the Mega Drive, the game really gives me the vibe of Altered Beast in just more than aesthetics, but more on that later. So, Shiny and Sounds, 2 cheers.
Well, that's 2 cheers for the Shiny and the Sounds. Up next is Control. Then, how did it control?
Lovely. Fantastic. Best controlling game of 2016. No, they didn't send me a check, so I'm not going to say that. Man, here's the thing. Here's the dice. Here's the reality of the situation, as they might say. You really should not have anything remotely resembling precision platforming unless your controls are the hella tight, Brad. It's like your input system with this game can only handle 1 button mash at a time, or it just goes bonkers. It's like, no, freeze. Look, you're dead, because it's a spike platform type thing. However, you can rebind the controls in game, which floored me, because when you see that Unity scream of nope, you're like, oh boy, spray and pray, Lana, and you hope they're correctly mapped to your Xclone 360 controller, which, for the most part, but I moved movement from the hat stick over to the D-pad, and that turned that motherfucker into a suggestion box, because sometimes you could go left, sometimes you couldn't, sometimes you could go right. Up and down, not that big of an issue, but yeah, I mean, even little things like the forward movement when you swing. I mean, you do have a dodge mechanic, which, since everything is so telegraphed when the baddies are attacking you, you don't need, because it's like, It's like, oh, yeah, right. I backed up now. Go ahead. And then you go fuck them up. So you never really use that. The only time what kills you to death in this game is just this fucked up. It's like, it didn't register that. Or, oh, look, I was trying to block. Do that more than once in a fight. And you're like, wow. Because that is like one of the cool things. If you do manage a block right, it like freezes and you get like a half a second of mild enjoyment out of the game as you like does this like a wicked crazy attack. But yeah, you might get one of those per session before it nopes you again, and then you'll definitely get into, the moving platform areas. It's just like, fuck this thing. But I'll talk more about that in the fun section. It controls. I would give it 1 saying it was completely busted, but it is rebindable, saving it from that, but only getting 2 chairs.
Oh yeah, everything Ben said. Plus, like there really is like this super annoying half-second delay between pressing a button and doing the thing. Pedro's going to go a little more in depth, but ultimately it still results in the same thing. It makes it super hard to react to shit, especially if, say, you want to block or dodge and you don't have a lot of room because you're in an area filled with fire pits and you have to dodge and block, and it just as you try to do that, the enemy attacks move faster than like how fast your character reacts. So even if you hit the button supposedly in time, you still get hit, which is really annoying. And speaking of that, the enemy hitboxes are weird. It's like sometimes you'll hit open air in front of them and it will register as a hit. Sometimes it won't. But yeah, I will elaborate more on this in the fun segment. But the controls are bad. They're just clunky and weird and floaty, and yeah, I can't give it more than 2 chairs because while it did work, it doesn't work well.
And in the produced version, you'll actually see the video of not Jordan, but Pedro playing this and demonstrating these controls.
Yes, demonstrating getting myself noped over and over a key press that didn't register. But I decided to try the game on a C-Box. Figured, it's a hipster pixel platformer, so we're going to play it on the C-Box. I got the mistress right here, so might as well give it a shot. So, first thing, Unity screen and nope. Hit all the buttons, it wouldn't register because you actually need a mouse to interact with it. So, go into the overlay, edit the controller mapping to make the left areola here act as the mouse, and when you click it, it sends the left click. All right, so I can get around that like this. -1 chair right there. So, as the captain of the Titanic said when he realized he couldn't steer the boat in time, the controls are floaty as fuck. They seem to have made the attack moves purposefully limited. After every third swing, your character has to take a little pause. And that's fine if the rest of your controls are tight. In that case, a limitation would just be something that the player would have to master in order to ensure survival. Plenty of games have done this. Hyperlight Drifter comes to mind. Even though Hyperlight Drifter, you had a visible 33 millisecond delay from when you hit a button and your character did the thing, it felt tight, and given enough practice, you would learn to work with that delay. In Slain, though, the delay doesn't come from the 30 FERPs lock, but from the stupidly over-designed animation. Because when you hit a button, you expect that that will trigger the action, not the animation. That's not what it does, because when you hit the button, the animation starts, in fact, but the action is on a noticeable delay, like halfway through the animation, and that's stupid. So I can't really give it 1 chair for controls, because in theory, you could still play and finish the game, but it gets 2.
Yeah, that's 2 chairs for controls, but that thing has the asteroid on it. That's minimum requirement for 2 chairs on that. And finally, fun. Ben, did you have fun at least?
I want to make this short and sweet. Ultimately, at the end of the day, with your lackady hairdo and your sparkly cowboy boots, yeah, you can even like the game with that. It's like Simon's Quest, but more boring, incredibly linear. So I'm just going to summarize this to make this wicked short. To the game developer, did you set out to make a Twitch Rage platformer? Is that what you were going for, Brad? Because you want to listen to me on this. Check me out. Those only work if you fuck you. They don't work when a busted input system causes you to get fucked, okay? I enjoy Nintendo hard games. I even like some fuck you hard games. Like, what was the stupid game, Pedro, that you hated? Miri Kirisi or whatever the hell it was called.
Taimumari?
That was it. And I enjoyed that. It really pissed me off. But for me, I thought it had decent controls. Then you got something like Super Meat Human. Perfect controls. You fuck yourself in that game. When you fuck up, you fucked up. In this game, when you fuck up, you're like, and you fuck up over and over and over and over and again because, like, you have been slain. And I was like, I was fighting for like 3 minutes. Fuck off. And you know it was the damn controls. It's like, I press that. Then you get to the point where you're holding the controller and you're like, look, game, like it's going to do. It's like, oh, I get it now. I'm going to start responding. But it doesn't. It doesn't pay you any attention. Fuck this game. 1 chair.
Yeah, and basically pretty much anything I can say about this game boils down to I want to like it, but the controls are just complete shit. And considering that this game basically when you're making a platformer action game, this is like the thing you have to nail. And you didn't, Brad, and no amount of Celtic Frost heavy metal noodling is gonna save it. It is just a miserable experience. It's an exercise in frustration. It is just I don't have fun playing this game. I play games to have fun. And this does not accomplish that goal in the least. And I kind of did want to like this game. I think heavy metal needs a bit more representation in the game space, but not like this. Not like this. One share.
Yeah, Slain, like many nostalgia-driven games before it, wears its inspirations on its sleeve. It's a 16-bit style 2D platformer, which is more than a little reminiscent of Altered Beast and Castlevania on the Mega Drive. Unlike Castlevania, though, you have one path when you're on a level proper, though there is a hub sort of town, which reminds me of Taimumari, and -1 share for reminding me of that game. The floaty controls make combat and precision platforming a crapshoot. You want to play a game which does platforming and combat really good, and it's still a 2D platformer, play Sultan Sanctuary instead. Sultan Sanctuary also has the advantage of not being a hipster pixel game. But as much as I wish we were throwing chairs at Sultan Sanctuary, we're not. We're talking about Slain. And Slain fills me with disdain. It's everything I hate and grown tired of over the past few years. It's the perfect representation of a Kickstarter project. It pulls the nostalgia-ridden retrogrades in with the promise of 2D pixel platformer and hopes that the metal theme will disguise the shitty overdone mechanics and the terrible controls. Well, guess what, Brad? It fucking doesn't. Like AM2R, it's a game that does two things to advance video games as a medium: dick and all. And it serves only to perpetuate the nostalgia culture. But, you know, if I have to be honest with myself, at least AM2R had tight controls. So for me, it gets 1 chair.
Yeah, so that's 1 chair for fun, and we tally this all up, and we get 2 chairs for the final score. Oh, so final thoughts, gentlemen?
It's a game wicked overpriced.
Yeah,
this is the fixed version of it, which
supposedly
is more horrifying than Carl's Meat Dragon.
Yeah, no, in this day and age, I'm willing to bet it's actually harder to make a 2D hipster pixel game in Unity than it is to make
I bet that original one would be fun to play on Twitch.
Yeah,
though, if it's more busted.
Yeah. So I am going to need developers to stop it. Graphics look like this in the 80s and the early 90s because that's all the technology at the time will let you do. Nowadays, even a freaking 140 euro Android flip phone like this right here can play Unreal Engine 3 games. That's enough.
Yeah, I mean, the hipster pixel thing doesn't bother me as much as the garbage control. If you cannot get that down, you should not make a platformer action game. That I can't say that enough. I might say it until I turn blue in the face, and then I might be slain. Coming up next, we get asked the question, why don't we comment on YouTube? And you'll find out why.
Grab that adult beverage, take those last few sips, because it's the hate mail. That's right, we're coming to an end, and it's my favorite time of the show because you scream at us and we get to reply to what you said. Even though sometimes it's really not worth it, but if you'd like to scream in our direction, go on over to LinuxGameCast.com, hit the contact button on the navbar, fill out the form, pretty easy. If you see the video posted on YouTube, you can leave us a comment there. On Patreon, same thing. If you find it on one of the social networks, make sure to track down the original post, leave us a comment there so we can see it. If it's good enough, or, not good enough, we'll feature it right here. And this week, we have 2 bits of hate mail.
Yeah, man. James, we were talking about the CryEngine last week, especially that it was getting Vulkan support before the DX12. And, I'm just going to be honest, when anything starts off with Chris Roberts, it's just hard to believe. But he said, he hired CryEngine devs to work on the engine specifically for Vulkan and DX12. This is why the CryEngine has support for these, I'm guessing for APIs or not APIs.
Apis.
Chris has mentioned they already added patches a while back for Vulkan, but they plan to get DX12 set up First, before Vulkan, but I wouldn't be surprised if it ends up being the other way around, considering Vulkan will help those on Windows 7 and 8, very good point, and Linux, even better point, whereas DX12 will only run on Windows phones. I'm sorry, he didn't say that. Well, only pertains to those on Windows 10. And yeah, a lot of people do forget about that. I mean, Vulkan is going to be very good for Windows users because, apparently Windows 10, Microsoft still has not managed to pull the glue stick out of Windows 10's mouth. But they're like, but it's got DX12, guys. And people are like sitting there on Windows 7 going, it is not good enough. I'm not taking that bait.
Yeah, no. Installing Windows 10 for the currently 8 or 9 games that support it. Yep.
And I mean, Microsoft has that trump card in their back pocket. If they just open source DirectX 12, that's game over for Vulkan. But they're not going to do it, and so the community sourced open standard will be the thing that people will want to use because programmers are lazy and don't like rewriting things. Up next. Yeah. We got soft power. This pertains to Pedro. He says, "Hey, you filthy pieces of shit! Why don't we ever see you hanging around in the Steam forums, joining forces with the rest of us, showing support for the demand of Linux sports and games? And don't tell me because it's a lost cause and that +1 posts are making things worse. Communication is key," said Captain Spark from SMNC. "If you never communicate with the devs, they will never even bother thinking about Linux. Even if they don't plan on porting it, at least they'll be reminded that Linux is a thing. It's soft power, and it works in the long run. Also, there are plenty of very heated discussions sometimes about how Linux is not ready for games, or why OpenGL is not API, or OpenGL API is not up to par with DirectX, and so on. Since you smart asses seem to have plenty of things to say about various topics, why don't you spend a bit of time helping out? Keep up the good work, you filthy bastard snobs." This is from Schleinrackenlolf.
Well, thanks for the love. Well, that actually warms our empty, non-existent holes where our hearts should be. How about you start a Linux gaming podcast a year before Steam releases on Linux and develop the entire infrastructure and toolchain in order to produce that podcast, which didn't exist beforehand. Then maybe, Jordan, then...
See... at the same time, I get that communication is key, right? But we're a media outlet. We're here to report to you. Well, we interface with devs on the back end. Like a lot of the times we're talking with people, it's via email, it's via Google Plus posts or stuff like that. It's not necessarily going to their forums. Sometimes it's talking with their media people. Sometimes it's talking with the devs directly. But I feel that is a better way of going about it than just having giant shows of support because. It's a little more manageable for us.
You don't mean that? Wait, no. We should be like everyone on Steam who says, if it gets Linux support, I'll buy the game, which they already own the game because they typed that on Windows, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not the end of your Pedro, say something.
I'm a bit guilty of actually having done some of what Schleinrackelf is asking of us. Whenever I see a game that I really want, the first thing I do is I go into the discussions and I look for Linux. If there isn't a single
looking for a fight, son, just quit.
That is just a bonus. But no. If I don't see like a topic asking about Linux and I know it's like an XNA game or an Unreal game or even a Unity game, I will start a thread that actually has URLs to everything the dev needs to know and the people he needs to get in touch with in order to make that happen. I did it with Salt and Sanctuary. The game's on Linux now. Guess it worked. So it's not about us not wanting to do it. It's just that the +1 posts don't really make things worse. They just don't do a damn thing at all. And yeah, if you really want the devs, you need to help them because like Jordan said, they're lazy fucking bastards. You need to give them like a tutorial, as it were, in order to get the game ported. And I don't see a lot of people doing that. Most of those topics are like, no tux, no bucks. When's the Linux version coming? Who's that helping?
Yeah, and I mean, I go to conventions, I talk to devs who are demoing their games there, and I'll say, are you supporting Linux? If not, why? And then I'll actually talk to them and address their concerns in a constructive manner. Because that's the thing. screaming on forums on the internet is screaming on forums on the internet. They can not pay attention to it.
But they can do good and they can do harm. A lot of people screaming. We saw that with the Stanley Parable. Yeah. See, that's immediately where we went. You know, a lot of people were effectively. And listen, you shouldn't be an online. I know it's very difficult sometimes, and I've talked to a lot of developers about it. Like, how the fuck do you deal with like everything hate? And it's like we created a hate null section. That's how we fucking deal with it. Bring it. But they're just not ready for. It's like, where's the port? Why can't you make a port and all this on source? And that guy was like, you know what? Peace among world, motherfuckers. And we didn't get that port for a year. So there's a very good example of why going overboard and turbo with things like that. Sometimes you might want to use a lighter hand. And it's usually not Pedro calling all game developers lazy, because there's some fantastic fucking game developers out there that work their ass off, and especially some solo projects that have just released stuff that has blown the mind organ out of the back of my head. So, yeah, what we need is, I think, what your boyfriend, Pedro, says, you do you and I do me, or some variation of that. You keep up the good work. You fight your holy war on that part, and we'll take care of it on this side. How about that? Does that sound like a compromise?
I just have wanting to do you stuck in my head right now.
And on that bombshell, let's cue the music. You can always find us normally around 9:30 Eastern Time. This was our special European UK edition, so it did start at 5 p.m. Eastern. You can always find me. I'm at Vinstone on the Twitternets, plus Vinstone on the G+. If you want to scream at me there, listen, man, I'm not one of those pretentious jack banjos or ass banjos. I'll get back to you, so keep that in mind.
I'm Jordan Sfung. You can find me inappropriately propositioning internet people on Twitter at The Burning Fool, or plus Jordan Sfung on Google+. Call me.
That appropriate part is a bit debatable. I am Pedro Mateos. You can find me being an asshole on just about every single social network you'll find me in, although I probably won't know who you are on Facebook. So just follow me at Unaccounted For on Twitter, or plus Pedro Mateos on Google+. Yes, you do. I know.
Just remember, at the end of the day, beautiful, beautiful people. We all run Linux. We all game under Linux, so the very least we can fucking do is stay out of each other's grills, yo, and all work together, you know?
Live and let die.
Yeah, it's a happy commune of the communist open source philosophy. Hail Stalin, hail Xenu.
I'm a nihilist, so if the world ends tomorrow with everything on fire, I'll be happy.
Oh my god, it's Richard Stallman.
Yeah, then we need to like intercut the Wilhelm scream after you say that.
Yeah, he heard about your new non-open source laptop, Pedro. He's here to kill you and Nori.
You have a block BIOS. You're gonna die. 5 dudes.